Melchizedek is a really interesting character that we have appearing seemingly out of nowhere in Genesis chapter 14. In Genesis 14, Abraham's on his way back from winning a battle, and he runs into Melchizedek, and he offers him a tithe. And all of a sudden we have this character whose name literally means the king of righteousness, and he is the king and the priest of Salem, or Jerusalem. And we read that he's both king and the priest of the Most High God. And here's Abraham, who has the promises of God, who's won a big victory, and he submits himself to Melchizedek, the king of righteousness, and he offers him a tithe. And then after Genesis 14, we never really hear from him again. He just comes and he goes. But then all the way in Psalm 110, David picks up this mysterious, little-known character in the Old Testament, and he says that in his line, in the Davidic line, there is going to be a king and a priest after the order of Melchizedek. And you're like, wait a second. Why is that coming into question here? And then it's picked up again in Hebrews chapter 7, and it's applied to the person of Jesus Christ, that he is a priest forever in the order of Melchizedek. So we have this character who's really kind of an unknown in the Old Testament, and he's attached to Jesus Christ. And this has led to a lot of questions like, is this guy a pre-incarnate vision or appearance of Jesus to Abraham, the father of Israel? So how do we think about that? How should we understand the person of Melchizedek in relationship to Jesus Christ? Well, the best way to do it is to let the text kind of speak for itself. And we kind of have to understand the ancient context as well. In the ancient world, kings were often also the high priests of their people. For example, Pharaoh during the Exodus was both the king of his people and he was the chief priest of his people. Moses goes to meet him out at the Nile as Pharaoh is blessing the Nile in his priestly roles, and he's also the king. So in the ancient world, it was actually the standard that the king would be both king and priest. He would lead his people both politically and religiously. But Israel was different. God established the line of David to rule over the people of Israel politically. And then he established also the line of Levi and Aaron to be the priestly leaders of the people. And in order to be a priest, you had to be from the line of Levi and Aaron. And in order to be a king, you had to be from the line of David. And the two really didn't mix together. But then you have the problem that when Jesus shows up, he makes the claim, and his followers make the claim, that he is both the king and the priest of the people. Well, how can that be? Well, the New Testament goes through great pain to tell us that Jesus is from the line of David. The genealogies in the Gospels tell us again and again that Jesus came through the line of David. That is, he is David's son. He is the Messiah. He is the king of Israel and indeed the king of the world. But it doesn't say anything about him being related to the tribe of Levi. So in Hebrews 7, that is what the author is trying to deal with. This problem with how could Jesus be the priest, the great high priest of his people, if he didn't come from the line of Aaron? How could he do that? Well, the answer is found in this little known character of Melchizedek. Melchizedek predates the line of Levi. Melchizedek was the priest before Levi was ever born. And Levi submits to Melchizedek in Abraham because Abraham is his grandfather, and Abraham submits to Melchizedek. So the author of Hebrews in chapter 7, he makes the argument that Jesus is like Melchizedek. He is a priest by nature of who he is, not by lineage and not by his own death. So that is, we don't have the lineage of Melchizedek and we don't have a recorded death of him. Just like with Jesus in the priestly way, we don't have a lineage justifying him to be priest, and we don't really have a final death of him. So Jesus is like Melchizedek. But is Melchizedek Jesus? And the answer, I think, is actually really, really clear in Hebrews 7. No. Melchizedek is not a pre-incarnate revelation of Jesus Christ. Why? Well, because there are two comparisons used for Melchizedek and Jesus. The first is this. It says that Melchizedek resembles the Son of God. Well, what does that mean? Well, resembles means he's like the Son of God. But that also means that in some ways he's not like the Son of God. To put it in simple terms, a person can't resemble himself. He is himself. Hebrews 7 says that Melchizedek resembles the Son of God. It doesn't say that he is. If he wanted to make the point that Melchizedek was Jesus, he would make that point. In fact, Paul does the same thing on 1 Corinthians chapter 10, where he says the rock that was following around Israel was Christ. But here we say, no, Melchizedek is like Christ. And then later on in chapter 7, it quotes Psalm 110, where it says Jesus is a priest forever in the order of Melchizedek. That is, in the order, like Melchizedek was a priest, so is Jesus. So you have in Hebrews 7, Melchizedek is like Jesus, and Jesus is like Melchizedek. But they're not one and the same. You can't say that Melchizedek is like Melchizedek. That wouldn't make really any sense. So what we really have here in Hebrews 7 is an explanation for why Melchizedek was put into the Bible thousands and thousands of years ago. Why does this random character show up to greet Abraham and then disappear? It's so that thousands of years later, when Jesus Christ would come to earth, God had set up a paradigm by which we could understand how Jesus could be both God, or be both the God king of his people and the priest of his people. So Melchizedek is pointing us to the priesthood of Jesus Christ.